The first Devil May Cry game came out 1 month after some Arabs mistook a plane for a camel's butthole, piled inside, and ruined fun for everyone for the next 10 years, marking Devil May Cry as one of the few games made in the early 2000s that lacked a cynical edge, over-the-top war propaganda, or a shoehorned-in political message. Unfortunately, cynicism crept into the second game, and political fluff into the fifth, forever marking the franchise as a mixed bag in terms of quality. Over the years, fans have clamored for one more try from the original devs, and before we speculate on the likelihood of a sixth Devil May Cry, it may be beneficial to revisit the 5 games we already have. Part 1, Devil May Cry, released in 2001. In Devil May Cry, you play as Dante, an albino J-rock enthusiast who wears the kind of coat that looks good when you buy it on eBay, but when it finally arrives 2 months later, you realize that not only do Koreans have a wider spectrum of animals they find it appropriate to harvest leather from, but also that a Korean men's size large is equivalent to an American girl's size small. But you try to look on the bright side of things, wheeze into it and have your mama drop you off at the mall, but wind up getting cornered in the food court and beaten to a pulp by a bunch of little girls who spit on you, call you emo bitch baloney nips, and run off with your coat, making it so you can't so much as even inhale the sweet, pungent aroma of a distant orange Julius stamp without breaking into a cold sweat and embarrassing erection. That, and he looks like what every greasy teenage boy born in the 80s thought they looked like, when in reality, they looked like this! While Dante is a pretty cool guy, his machismo masks so many mommy issues that not only does he wear his dead mother's jewelry, he literally gets penetrated by a clone of his mother in the opening cinematic, and she doesn't even spit on the shaft first. Nasty! Though I don't blame Dante for wanting to smother his other mother with his steaming nutter butter, Trish is so delish that even the elaborate gothic architecture gets a throb on the knob when she's on the job. DMC retained some vestigial components left over from when it was supposed to be a Resident Evil game, from the creepy levels, the atmospheric music, to the goofy writing. You probably won't understand what the fuck is going on your first time through Devil May Cry, and when you'll do, you'll like it, but you'll also wonder why they spent so much time having you trash talk a fondue spider, and so little time explaining that Dante has an estranged brother. Gameplay-wise, while I can appreciate the complete absence of quick time events, the basic combat system is a little lacking. Later entries in the series allow you to choose from different fighting styles, and gave you a larger variety of weapons to choose from. In this initial installment, you get 3 swords that might as well have been different forms of the same blade, and a pair of gauntlets that allow you to give the roughest fistings to ever exist this side of Mike Tyson's bedroom. A powered-up devil form and taunt that helps fuel it keep the gameplay mostly fresh despite the small variety of bosses and enemies you encounter. You fight each boss at least 3 times, but some of the fights are completely optional, and the structure of the fights changes enough to keep them from going stale. These bosses include Dante's brother dressed up like a complete idiot, a bird that poops laser beams, and a boss that I can only assume was inspired by Hideki Kamiya passing a kidney stone in the dark. Regular enemies include pizza-cutting puppets, ice cube lizards, room temperature lizards, retards with their balls hanging out, and Japanese boyfriends. Whether you're juggling enemies with pistols in order to keep your style points high, or blowing them to bits with a grenade launcher, the variety of guns at Dante's disposal helps keep dealing with the regular enemies interesting, but lack any variety in terms of a moveset. The biggest problem with this game, however, is its complete lack of a level select feature. Almost every other entry in the franchise allows you to replay levels you've already beaten on higher difficulties at your discretion. In this original Devil May Cry, you're forced to play through on normal first, using low-level equipment against low-level enemies, then once more on hard, before you can reach the most rewarding difficulty, Dante Must Die mode. As you play, you can upgrade Dante's moveset and health in exchange for orbs that look like social justice warriors the moment Donald Trump became president. In theory, this makes for a fun experience where advanced play is rewarded with new moves, but in practice, it means that the first half of your first playthrough is a little dull due to a lack of options in your moveset. Devil May Cry is also a swimming and platforming game at times, and the jumping mechanic works well, save for when the non-interactive camera changes angle on you mid-jump. Then you might as well try jumping up your own butthole for how poorly the mechanic works. Overall, Devil May Cry is an interesting little game, while I wouldn't put it on the same level as the third or fourth entries in the franchise, it serves as a solid starting point for newcomers. Give it a chance, and maybe, just maybe, it'll fill your dark soul with love!